5 years now and 7 years in the company.
What is Sulake?
Let's go back to that. My personal history is I've been doing software since early 90s. I was actually studying here in Otaniemi in the early 90s as well, but dropped out of that. Professionally, I've been in this business for 15 years or so. First 6 years making software for others as a consultant, then a couple of years doing financial software in a small startup, and then the past 7 years doing games in Sulake. And Sulake is doing Habbo Hotel. So on a more general sense, what we do is create social places for people to meet and interact with online. It's inconvenient. I didn't have taken Bluetooth with me. Habbo Hotel is an environment for teenagers where they do social play of various sorts. We can demo, or I can demo it later if you're interested in that. We also do IRC Gallery in Finland. You may have heard of that. But Habbo is our main business, and Habbo is pretty international these days. 12 languages, 150 countries with users, 50 countries with customers, and it's been growing for the past 10 years. Those figures are from April. So pretty good. That really doesn't, of course, make us a startup anymore, but I don't think there's much of a difference in terms of being an innovative company, whether you're just starting or whether you're trying to grow something, because you still have to do innovation and it still means the same thing. So, of course, the past couple of years have been relatively interesting in terms of being a startup is that there's all kinds of economic considerations to think about, and starting up becomes cheaper than it ever has been. I think it will continue personally, but it also means that competition comes from anywhere. You just can't depend on not having competition anymore. Or, then again, you can always compete against anyone else as well, but going up against an established company is of course a bit difficult. So the other bit of this, of course, is that how much money you need to start up depends on what you're trying to reach. What is your market and what is the product? But end of the day, you never want to burn money, whether it's good times or bad times, as it seems to be right now. Even in 2010, it still seems to be rather bad times for getting money. But that doesn't matter, because you don't want to burn it anyhow. You want to be smart about it. So the other question is, what is entrepreneurship? And I think it goes back to a couple of things. You have to be able to make decisions, you have to be responsible for your decisions, and you have to be accountable for them. And that doesn't matter whether you're entrepreneuring yourself or with a small team or within a company. It's still the same thing. You really have to make your own decisions and be accountable for them anyhow. You could be working in the largest company in the world, and if you weren't doing this, you wouldn't be doing a good job. And the other question is, what is innovation? Wikipedia defines it as a new way of doing something. But really it ends up being a question of you can invent things, but in order for them to be innovations, they have to be feasible to do. It just isn't enough that they are new. They have to be feasible. They have to be viable as a business, and they have to be desirable to some sort of customer base. And you want to have a maximum customer base. And now that goes into how do you find those customers. So this is all about being lean. So one thing, I've been doing this stuff for 17 years now, and I've gotten somewhere, I guess. But at the end of the day, I am wrong most of the time. The thing about it is that I tend to be wrong as often as other people, or maybe a bit less often as some other people, and that seems to work. So how does that work? It's all about always reviewing what you're doing, taking what you learn and realigning yourself, and every decision you make, you have to be ready to revisit it and do it again if it turns out to be wrong. So you never ever want to lock yourself into a decision, and you definitely don't want to lock yourself into a plan before you know whether that plan is right or not. So that's really about what it means to be lean. So Silicon Valley calls this the fail fast concept. I don't really like those two words because no one wants to be failing, of course. But the question is when you have to fail, and you will fail, try to be smart about it. Don't fail in the wrong place, and try to please learn from your failures. This is, of course, the most difficult skill there is in business. It's very, very hard to fail. You rather try to avoid it until you're out of business. But in order to not to fail, you have to produce value to a customer, whatever customer, and preferably to as large a number of customers as possible. But what you thought would be valuable probably isn't what they will determine to be valuable at the end of the day. So this is the question. You can have the best possible product, in your opinion, reaching 0 customers. 0. And that probably doesn't work as a business. In order to find out whether what you think is valuable, other people think it's valuable as well, you have to test it on a market, and whatever market that is, whether you're targeting global consumers as we are, or whether you're targeting 10 companies in Finland to buy your product, whatever best possible internet you can imagine, you still have to test it on the customer base. Test it on that customer base, not some other customer base. So you need to go there fast. You need to figure out if they're interested, and then you know whether what you think your business is going to be a business. So essentially, I don't know what you guys are doing. I haven't heard of the details. I know that there are 10 startups here.
Actually, we'll get them to, I'd like them to pitch you like 30 seconds.
Yeah, I would like to hear that. But one thing I know about what you're doing is that you release too late. If you released on the first day of your business, before you had a business, you still did it too late. And I know that because I do it all the time. You always, at the end, once you go back and look at what you were doing, what was the first thing you released, you can tell that you could have avoided doing something and been there faster. Something that you did wasn't relevant to the end result. And that's why you have to always review what you decided to do, and especially what your plans are, because there's always something extra there. The more time you spend thinking about what's extra, the more extra you have there. So stop thinking and start releasing is essentially what I'm saying. So every idea can be done smaller, and still, I mean, it's not that doing it smaller makes it a better business, but doing it smaller makes you learn faster whether it's going to be a business if you do it bigger. It's a question of which parts do you really need to test, and that's really how you determine a good business. Is you just test the big metrics. Now, depending on your type of business, there's various key performance indicators that your venture capitalists or investors or whoever wants to learn about and wants you to learn about. But at the end of the day, there's only one metric that really determines whether you're going to be able to succeed in competition. You may be able to get to market with other metrics, but in order to win the competition in the long term, there's only one thing that matters, and that's how fast you cycle. How fast you get a new release, or new product, or new whatever, put it to market, learn from the customer base, and do it again with that new information built into it. It's a full idea build, measure, learn, do a new idea. That's the cycle, and you have to be faster and faster and faster at it. When I joined Sulake, we were doing a cycle of 2-3 months. We weren't really focused on the product cycle. We were more focused on entering new market cycle, and we optimized that to be 1 month. And that was pretty good considering that we hired a new team, found a new office, found new marketing partnerships in a new country, formed established businesses. It wasn't a bad cycle, but at the end of the day, we were so focused on that, our product cycle started to drift. It became 7 months. 7 months in an internet business without the new version of a product. That's scary.
I would have a question to your cycle time.
Sure.
Would you apply that to all businesses, or especially to the internet business? Because I recall quite many companies who are not doing that. They are, if I, for example, you know James Dyson?
Yeah.
He spent, I don't know how many years to produce his first vacuum cleaner. And it was a hassle, and now he's a billionaire and has one of the best companies in the entire world, probably, and probably one of the most creative ones. And he's strongly, for example, against that.
Do you know how many prototypes of the vacuum cleaner James Dyson created before he found it?
Something like more than 2,000, I think.
Exactly. Do you know what the cycle time between those prototypes was?
Less than a day each.
Precisely. That's the cycle time. In James Dyson's business, it was enough for him to cycle internally and find out if he vacuums.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I know where you're going. So okay. But,
Yeah.
Okay.
It depends. I mean, then he got to the point where he has a vacuum cleaner that works, and then he took years to get it to market and get the marketing to work and so forth. And that's a different cycle. He ended into a different business cycle that required different product cycle.
Yeah. Okay.
But cycle time always matters. It depends on what you're doing, as what is the cycle that you have to cycle in.
Okay.
But it always matters. And in the long run, I mean, now you're thinking of your first thing, and there's one cycle there, and I'm saying get to market as fast as possible. But once that you find that works and you're on the market, it changes. The cycle now is how fast can you learn, how fast can you change what you're doing and be better at it. And that's then the cycle that you have to improve on. And if there is one competitor to your product, and they're faster at the cycle, it doesn't matter if they're worse now, they will be better than you are. That's why it matters. Good question though.
Yeah, good answer.
So in order to make your cycle time faster, you have to cut something off. You can't just build your cycle on the concept that, yeah, let's do everything we do now, but do it faster. Because then you're cutting something else, and that's probably going to be quality. And you don't want to cut quality, at least without really understanding what you're doing. But cut something else. There's probably something that you're doing that you don't need to be doing. Again, whether that's getting before you get to the market the first time, or once you're on the market, but to try to speed up your cycle, there's always something that you're doing that you don't have to be doing. Again, we do it all the time. We waste enormous amounts of time doing whatever that doesn't end up being useful, but we try to learn and not do it again. And I think this is my final point before Ramin gets to ask me questions, is really, now you're in a sweet spot that you probably, every one of you is a small team of 2, 3, 4 people. And small teams really rule. Why is that? Is because in a small team, it's easy to communicate. You don't have to spend days haggling over email because someone wasn't there. You don't misunderstand each other in one-on-one discussions that get repeated 10 times. And you don't have the reporting chains of a company of 1,000 people where messages change as the broken telephone moves them forward. You can really all be in the same room, not just once in a while, but all the time. And communication is really, really important in order to get the cycle time down. When everyone is able to know what everyone else is doing, not necessarily the details, but the status. Is it done? Is it not done? Can I help you? Those are the situations where a small team can move so much faster than a big team. And again, it doesn't matter that you're behind now, as long as you're faster in the cycle. So I hope, everyone complains about the amount of resources available to them, but if essentially, if you don't hear that complaint, then you have too much. So companies that don't complain are companies that are too fat. If you haven't heard of Eric Ries, I hope you have by now, but if you haven't, check out his
Who's
work.
heard of it?
Oh my god!
That's it, early startups.
Oh my god, do some reading!
We'll
Yeah,
send
that's
you some
actually one of
homework.
the things we've been emphasizing during the past days, because of course we want to, be as visible as possible, and for you guys, the only way to do it is through social media, basically blogs, tweeting, Facebook updates, all that. And actually, well, I can mention his name. Carl asked me, almost asked me this question today: what's a blog? And I was like, well, okay, obviously know what's a blog, but still, we need to do a lot of
But we'll send you
improvements on
some
that side.
homework today with Eric Ries, and he's got a 45-minute presentation which should really help you. And he was here in Helsinki actually not long ago. Also, we have some homeworks for some other of the speakers, like Jussi Lakonen has asked me to send you a video before. So let's see. But you got more or
No, this is it. So if you're taking any notes whatsoever, take that note, because I mean he has written a whole lot of what I was just speaking, and that explains you what I didn't explain. But he's a smart guy, so please. Okay, so that's it. My contact information if you're interested, and Rami,
great.
what's up?
So guys, if we could get like each of the teams to pitch us 30 seconds to Osma, it'd be great.
Yeah, same thing as we did this morning.
Yeah.
Let's start in that end.
So,
Maybe let's do Alpha first.
Okay, we're doing a location-based reminder service that uses the GPS on your mobile phone for location information. So you can set up reminders that show up when you get to a certain location. So for example, you could make a reminder that remember to buy milk and set it up so that it shows on your mobile when you get near the store.
Okay, microphone.
Hi, I'm Oscar. I'm from Micropolling. We basically provide a service to collect feedback via SMS. The basic idea is that when you swipe your loyalty card, you get an SMS. It asks you a question of, was the service satisfied? Were you satisfied with the service? You answer with a numeric answer from 1 to 5, and then you get more loyalty points, plus pistet, whatever. And our customer gets feedback data about their customers.
Okay. So the stores are your customers.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, I'm Juho Salmi from Living Canvas. Our product is Rainforest in a Box. With our product, you can bring a spectacular vertical jungle in your office, in your home, and it's a very cool design element, and it purifies the air.
SMS? Yeah, my name is Carl, as we already pointed out, and we've decided that we're going to create a service for developing countries, in our case Ethiopia, to ease the access to public transportation over there, buses especially at the beginning, via mobile phone.
Yeah, we're basically doing an internal social network for companies, focusing on aggregating information from different sources inside the company.
Why was it? There's plenty of products like that available today. Why is yours different?
You'll see.
Okay.
Here you're gonna
Asking for names. I don't know.
You can probably show the prototype.
Yeah, we can show it.
Which ones?
Well, Jive Software has something pretty much exactly like that. They started with forums, but they're moving in that direction. And Yammer, Enterprise Twitter, Confluence it's mostly a wiki, but it does all of that as well.
Hi, I'm Wei. I'm from the Team Buffet. Our product is to provide customer support service for the online game social service, and it's actually as aggregate like collecting all the message player or customer message from the Facebook, Twitter, and some different channels, and we sort it into the message pool, and the customer support team can just reply it. And we also can do some analyzer from the customer support point of view, like statistics and other stuff.
Pawaja?
Hi, I'm William from Pawaja, and we are consulting about different researchers from Finland, Sweden, USA, Canada, coming together with an idea of social businesses. So we are hoping a prototype that can use biogas at community level using resources, local resources like animal waste, food waste, before a system that would be using biogas for cooking. A same system that was built by the virtual gun. So this is what we want to use for the opportunity. So we're targeting the whole of the Great Lakes region, East Africa, and other countries.
How many people are you?
We are 4 people.
Because that's a whole lot of stuff to do for a 4-people team.
Don't you have 5? I mean, one part-timer.
Yeah, sure. We have 2 part-time and the other 6 people, but yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, MBA.
Okay, mobile analyzer team. Yes, for here slide, really users read the information of nutrient facts of food in supermarket directly, and use NFC technology method and barcode method with 3G to support the smartphone. We use database to support, maintain, upgrade multi-platform applications.
All right. Octary.
Hi, I'm William from Octaren, and the problem that we sort of try to look into is that nowadays, if you look at Facebook, Twitter, right, they present information as streams of updates. So, for example, if several years pass, right, then it's very hard to find that information. So what we want to do is we want to aggregate that information, associate it based on date and location. And so, for example, if a user went to a trip, let's say, right, he took pictures and tweets, and a friend replied to his tweets and commented on those pictures. We can sort of put it together, present it either on a timeline or a location-based or both, and visualize it. So basically that's what we try to do.
Cool. Then who?
We're trying to make a surface material out of building wool with sort of function that would help to alleviate pain that's caused by staying in the same posture for a long time.
Wow. Good luck with that. I need that.
Yes, you have a lot of nerds at Slovakia who could like. Maybe you have your first customer.
Sorry, actually one more. Funny, what do
My name is Yasin. I'm from Couponium team. Couponium is a freemium mobile application that provides consumer with deals, offers, coupons regarding their location and what they are interested in.
That's a whole space right now.
Sorry?
It's a hot space right now.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's all.
Yeah, 11 teams. Oh. So, you've been a CTO for quite a while now. 5 years. Before this, you are in charge of technical teams.
Yes.
How long was it before that?
Well, I've been at Sulakia for seven years, and the first 3 or so were mostly about just making our technology scale and running the data center infrastructures and planning that.
All right. So I think the interesting stuff here for us is like talking about really prototyping really quickly and why it makes sense to do this. Also, your girlfriend is she a girlfriend, fiance? Anyway, your partner is currently so starting up a new company, and I guess you've applied a lot of the stuff you've been learning.
Well, I try to not do what they do, but I try to help when I can.
Okay. So what do you think is a good way of thinking? So they're doing a social game also, reality-based social game.
Couples. It's on Facebook right now. Relationship games.
They were in the boot camp.
Yeah,
they were in the boot camp.
Yeah. Also, I did a video of them. You can see on my site. What do you think is a good way to get started and just build your first prototype?
Well, relationship games was a good example of that, and the reason why I got interested in the first place was that the person who had the founding idea, Mari, actually ran the first prototype of the game, just her doing the game engine herself. We were just exchanging emails and SMS, and she was running the round of the first game without any technology whatsoever. She had the game concept, and she had a couple of tasks that she thought would be part of the core game, and just went half by gut and half by what she had written down of the concept beforehand. And that was before a single line of code. So I mean, there's always a way to prototype somehow. In that particular situation, that was the way, but it could be that if again, with many IT products, you want to do paper versions of the interface and try to find out if it makes sense on a piece of paper and test it with a couple of friends of yours and not tell them what to do and just see if they managed to do whatever needed to be done. Of course, I mean, in physical products, that sort of prototyping might be a bit more difficult. I don't know how you combine wool and felt without actually doing it, but there's always a way to try some. I mean, try to figure out what's the core piece of the problem that you're most unsure of. Whether it's that you don't know if the technology doesn't work. Very rarely these days it's a question of you don't know if the technology is going to work, or whether it's that your game idea needs to be fun, but you're not quite sure if other people consider it to be fun, or you want to sell something to consumers, and then you just need to know if consumers are going to think it's interesting. I mean, that could be that consumers in one market already think it's interesting. Then you had your proof. It could be that you're so early. I mean, your idea is very, very good, and it will be a hit. But you're 2, 3, 4 years too early, and they don't understand what you're trying to pitch to them. So in that sense, that case, you should probably not do the product now. Find out early enough that you shouldn't do it now, and wait a few years. Do something else instead.
So when you talk about prototype, you don't mean like build the first product, the first version of what will be the first part of the last product.
Typically not.
You mean just something that lets you get some form of feedback and
yes.
you can build upon. So it could be like a paper version.
It could probably it's something completely different to your end product, but it validates what you don't know about the end product.
All right. I remember like when I started my sites, actually, my sites was paper for 3 months. I didn't have my YouTube for coders or anything, so I just planned everything because I knew like every time that they'd work, I'd have to have everything ready so I wouldn't waste time. So that my sites was paper.
Did you test the paper version?
Yeah, on my girlfriend and my dad.
Okay, well now you had a 2-person sample. That's
There's something.
Yeah, that's something. No, I mean there's a big difference between building a prototype on let's say paper and testing it on people and starting to do very, very detailed plans. Because the plans are completely meaningless. The prototype is what matters, and not even really the prototype, it's the learning that you get from seeing other people use the prototype or learn of the prototype or whatever is the question that you're trying to prove to to yourself and to potential investors. Even if you're completely convinced that everything in it works, then talk to a few people who might be able to afford invest in your idea, even if they're not the people who will, even if they say that they will never do it, but they could try to get their time enough to learn what they don't think you have proven, and then prove that.
You said something about, well, actually, this philosophy of building something consumer want, I think is quite opposite to what 37 Signal says, in a sense. Like, how many of you guys follow like blogs of 37 Signals and know like DHH and people like this?
So no one's doing Google.
If you had lifted your hands, you would have less homework tonight. Okay,
so what you mean is that consumers don't know what they want before they see it.
In a sense, I mean, what DHH was saying in the event I saw last month was that you know they don't care about customer feedback. Essentially, they just build a product which they want.
Yeah.
And they ignore entirely the users. Just build something they find really cool, and then they hope the others will like it and essentially think that it does, etc.
Because they are very much in the business of building their own dog food. And if you are in that business, if you're a company that you are completely convinced that you and your friends are the kind of people who will want this product, and there are more than the three of you in the world, then by all means do a product for yourself. But in many cases, our business included, we who do it are not the people who are going to use it, pay for it. And in those situations, it doesn't matter that you like it.
When you started at Sulake, you guys weren't lean, were you?
No.
You have any figures of like how much more productive you've been, like how much you've lowered the cycle, etc.? So.
Well, we've been through so many cycles of improving our business that it's that kind of question on the overall is impossible to say. But for example, at the point when we realized that our then waterfall-based product development cycle was failing pretty hard, and the cycle time was getting longer and longer, and we started experimenting with doing Scrum. It took us.
What is Scrum?
Scrum is an iterative agile model of doing product development in iterations of 1 week to 4 weeks at a time, where the team and whoever's responsible for the business, and Scrum calls this the product owner, agree ahead of time in the beginning of the iteration, and this is the direction we want to go, and these are the milestones that the team is willing to commit to doing in that time. Whether it's, again, I would recommend to do very small teams and very short sprints, one iterations. So for instance, if you have three developers and 1 week time to do something, then those 3 developers, not the person who's responsible for the business or the project manager or whoever, someone external, but the 3 people who actually will do the work, will say that yes, this is what we can deliver in a week's time. And then they will deliver it. It's a hard commitment. And then once you add the other commitment that the product owner makes is that they will not change the direction on Wednesday. They will wait until Friday to see what the results are. And then you start over. And you learn from every iteration. And that's why it's important to keep the iterations short, is that you get to learn what you did wrong, what were the commitments that were hard to keep, and try to do something about those the next time, and so forth. But anyway, we switched to Scrum and had, I think we were doing 4-week sprints at the beginning, which was already a big jump from doing 6 to 7 months of development at a time with a certain set of commitments. So we did 1 month and did the next month and the third month, and after 3 iterations, once we had figured out how does this actually work, we calculated that we were about 2/3, 67% more productive doing this than what we were doing before. And that we estimated by just looking at what we did in the round before, or in the last release before this method change, and in the 3 releases since, and how much were the estimates different.
Okay. I think when you're especially beginning a startup, getting criticism is always super scary in the beginning because it's your baby and it's your ideas, etc. And
it's not it doesn't ever get easier.
Sure, but you get more used to like getting beaten up, right? So.
And hopefully you have a couple of success stories behind you to build your confidence. But you will get criticism, and it will always hurt.
But the thing is that for example, it is sort of more comfortable, and you can justify in many ways, like building your product first, and you want to build it a little bit more, so it's less crappy, so you get less criticized when you go and test it towards people. What do you have to say about this?
Well, I can understand the psychological motivation being of spending a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 6 months more time to do the first version before you show it to others, because you don't like to get criticized by something that you know isn't as good as you could make it. And yes, it will hurt to get that criticism, but believe me, it will hurt more when you run out of money before you have a viable product. And that's what you need to be afraid of, not the criticism. The criticism will help you direct your attention to where it needs to be, not where you think it needs to be. Getting the criticism early makes sure that, some things will fail anyway. Some ideas just are plain dumb and shouldn't have been done in the first place. And you want to learn those as early as possible as well. But of the good ideas, again, at least 1/3. I would say probably like 80% of the original thing is not necessarily bad, but unnecessary. And you don't know which 80% or which 50% or whatever before you've actually gotten some criticism. That's why you want to get it early, even if it hurts.
So what happens if you build something, it sucks, and you showed it to people, and they say, well, you suck. And probably, you lose them, or, how do you get them back? What happened? How do you deal with this? Because, essentially, if you've built something which sucked and you launched it and you lose people, this is a negative result. How is this a good thing?
Well, there's a couple of different alternatives to that, and my experience doing enterprise product, business-to-business stuff is several years old, but on the consumer side, there's probably more consumers in the world than we will ever reach. You can afford to lose a couple of hundred. And you will be losing them. We are losing consumers, our customers every month. Then we're gaining some back and getting some new ones. You will, if you are successful, you will lose customers. Get used to it. Now, if you're in an enterprise market and you have a market of 3 companies, well, yeah, you want to be sure that at least they get the core idea of what you're pitching before you pitch them. It never is good to go into a business-to-business situation with a bad pitch. But you don't have to have the product. There are examples, again, you do some blog reading if you want to learn more, but there are many documented examples of companies that pitch business to business without first having a product. And they will promise what the product is, and they will even get their first customers before they have products. It doesn't work all the time, it doesn't work for all business ideas, but in many it does work. Try to get the feedback early.
One thing I find interesting is, when you go to business school and you get to meet, let's say, okay, I go to an event, I see a CTO, I'll expect him to say, you need to build better technology, you need to optimize, get the latest scripts and make it better, and if you're 5% more powerful, you'll be a bit cheaper and this will make you better or something. You're saying, listen to your consumers, listen to your customer, which is like what I would think a sales guy would say.
Yeah, because I mean, if what you have is good enough, then you have time to make it better.
Essentially, you're saying that even though you're CTO, it's not about the tech, but it's about the users now.
Yeah. I mean, of course, like I said, most businesses these days aren't technology constrained. Twitter goes down every second day. What the hell? I mean, they could do a better job, but clearly they're still not technology constrained because Facebook doesn't go down every second day, and Facebook is bigger. So it can be done. It's not a question of can it be done. It's a question of can you do it, and can you market it to customers, and does it make sense to your consumers?
One thing I find interesting about the lean methodology is so my background is a lot in community management. I've been trying to be very near the users, etc. But before we started being lean at my sites, we weren't that we weren't that close to our users. I spoke to a few, etc. regularly, but we weren't as efficient. And we've been using Google Buzz lately to be in touch with them, etc. in real time. It's been pretty handy. But one thing I realized is that being lean is actually a very good marketing tool, in the sense that you create star users, you create the evangelists so much faster, because the guys who stick to your progress, basically, it feels like really important.
Yeah, and there's some really interesting psychology behind that as well. And I'm not certainly a marketing expert, but I've hung around marketing experts long enough to have realized that they're really the evangelist consumers, at least in the consumer market. The evangelist customers are people who get what you're going to be. Not what you are now, but what is your promise. And you won't get them if you are there already. You will have to promise something that you will be, so that they can believe in something and not just, Douglas Adams said that God doesn't exist because it can be proven or whatever. You have to be able to believe in the product in order to be evangelizing about it. And if there's nothing more to believe, then there is no evangelism. So if you want to reach evangelists, you have to start smaller than you're eventually going to be. And again, that's drop out complete parts of the product, not just skimp on quality, because evangelists will not like a full but bad product. They will like a small but good product.
It reminds me of Shigeru Miyamoto saying, like, a bad game is bad forever, a game will eventually be good if you just keep iterating, which is what they do at Nintendo.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Well, eventually they make their game. In practical terms, just ignore the theory for a moment. What would you say to a team who's just here and just really starting to, be more productive, be more lean? What should they do or not do? Right? What are the things they should avoid? Like unnecessary meetings or whatever, making plans or something. Are there things that they really should not do that you think a lot of startups do at the beginning?
Oh, making plans is the number one thing, many people do spend quite a lot of extra time meeting, for instance, potential investors before they have something to show to the investors. I don't want to say that you shouldn't spend that time, because you should talk to people. But what you should not do is make plans too far ahead. If you can just decide what you're going to deliver today, and then deliver that today, and decide again tomorrow. Definitely don't make plans for what you're going to have finished by the end of August when the summer of startups ends. Do something this week, today. When you get to the end of this week, decide on what you're going to do next week.
How does that work in practice for startups, any plan you make takes twice as much time as you'd like?
Well, yeah, you will learn to learn your limits over time. So if you make a plan for 2 months now, and it takes you 4 months to deliver on that plan, well, you failed because you only have 2 months. But if you make a plan for 2 days and it takes you 4 days to deliver it, now you know that you are planning to spend half the time you're gonna spend. So plan for 1 day.
Essentially, you're saying that plans have a tendency to become obsolete very fast for startups.
Pretty much, yeah. So you will learn how fast they become obsolete for you only by doing. So you want to have iterations there as well.
Is it not a waste of time, sort of, or a handicap to go and talk to your user every time you do an incremental?
If you don't learn anything new about it, yeah. But then I would claim that you probably weren't asking the right questions. You probably were still talking to the right user, but you weren't asking the right questions. So yeah, that requires discipline as well.
What's the right question?
Depends on your situation. What did you want to learn? What did you need to learn? What did you need to prove? Ask questions about that.
So stuff you can measure.
You can measure pretty much anything, really. I mean, some things. I'm a metrics geek. I measure a whole lot of stuff numerically, but you can measure stuff even if you don't get the numerical response.
Okay. How would you go on to say, okay, your team here is starting, you get your first feedback, etc., and then you try to add more people there. You get 5 different people saying 5 different things, and they all, like different aspects of the thing. How do you deal with this?
Well, ultimately, it goes back to your vision then. I mean, you will get conflicting response, and sometimes you will say that that's bullshit. I don't want to believe that, and that's fine. Then it becomes your responsibility. At least you heard the feedback. You have to choose what to do with the feedback. Before you have it, you don't get to choose.
Do you have any advice on aggregating this feedback from a lot of people? Do you use yourself social media tools to be in touch with users, or do you do it personally? Or
yeah, but our problem is kind of different because
you're bigger.
We have to aggregate feedback because we get feedback from 1 million people, and you can't read 1 million opinions. So you have to start doing something more systematic about it. And you have to make it numeric and so forth. But
what about relationship games?
Well, relationship games, if they get feedback from 5 people a week, then you can read the feedback and try to understand what's behind it. And you can even call back and ask, what did you mean? And it's really a bad idea to call back and ask what did you mean. If you have the chance to ask follow-up questions, do so. The people who gave you feedback are the people who are committed to help you. That's regarding the critical feedback and the negative stuff, at whatever scale you will get negative feedback. But the nice thing about negative feedback is that it's still feedback. It's people who cared enough to comment. And that clearly means that they have a commitment of some sort. The people you never hear about are the people who didn't care enough to comment. And that's probably the audience you wanted to reach. So that's the issue with 37 signals and listening to customers is the people who you would like to hear about are the people who won't tell you. You can't reach the people you want to reach. You will reach people who you hope are going to be representative of something that might be helpful for you in the future, and that's why you have to interpret the results.
Isn't there a tendency for feedback to be usually negative?
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing?
People who you know personally are if you know them very, very well, you will get negative feedback. If you know them casually, they will probably skip the negative feedback and say something encouraging, and that's not completely useless. And people you don't know at all will give you negative feedback. And then you learn to interpret that. And again, I would go back to iterations. If you test 4 things on 4 different weeks, learning between, and the amount of negative feedback or the intensity of the negative feedback goes down, well, hey, now you're doing a good job, but the negative feedback doesn't go away.
One thing you said earlier about releasing great technology but not having users, struck something me especially. So when we built the first version of my sites, so I don't know if you know the story.
No, I don't.
But so we built, we were called by Mashable the best online desktop on the market. Really cool.
That's cool.
And so we spent 2 years basically building like equivalent of Windows but on the internet, entirely in Ajax. So it could work on any machine that had internet. It's really cool. And you could view your pictures, your videos, or whatever everywhere. And the idea was to do it everywhere, all the devices, all your data, etc. It's great tech. Sort of like Chrome OS is doing nowadays. Like, well, sort of next year, but.
Maybe.
Yeah. So like we were really ahead of our time and stuff. It's really, really cool. And like some users were like, yeah, I don't really understand your idea, but we're like, yeah, okay, you're stupid. Because like all these guys at Mashable and Silicon Valley, they get it and they say we're really cool. So we launched it and then nobody came. And we saw that there was a market of about 10,000 people in the world who were interested in our thing. So we had great tech. But we wasted so much time and money because like we had this confirmation bias that I kept hearing feedback that was negative from some people, but I ignored them because I thought they weren't cool. So how do you overcome this?
Well, in that particular example, there were a couple of situations that I referred to earlier that could have been. It could be that you were 4 years too early, and the world just needed to catch up. Well, we'll see in a couple of years' time. Or it could be that you built too much of a product, so you couldn't get the evangelists on your side because they didn't see any more promise to it. It was too perfect. And that really does happen, honestly. You can have a too good product. Or it could have been just that what you were doing wasn't something that consumers need, or something else. But Back to your question on what was your question actually?
So it was a comment on like the fact that we launched great tech and we got feedback, but we got lots of confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Basically. That like I kept hearing feedback, which was also like,
yeah,
these guys really agree with me, so this is pretty awesome.
And those guys fired those guys.
Those guys don't understand anything.
I want to get more Mashable editors in my product.
Exactly. Yeah,
well, there's a limited market of Mashable editors.
I know.
No, I mean, you want to find out how many. I mean, you had a consumer, or you still have a consumer product, and you need to reach millions of people in order for it to really make sense. So there just aren't that many early adopter people in the world. So you need to learn the feedback from the audience that you're going to have to reach. And I mean, Clayton Christensen and the guys, all this crossing chasm stuff and so forth. I mean, your market today is probably not the market of your 5 years' time if you're that good. And in order to get there, you first have to get here. And you need to reach I mean, you did so much stuff and so much tech that you needed 1 million customers for it to make sense. But what if your tech would have been cheap enough, light enough, cheap enough to make so that the first 10,000 would have been enough?
Of course, what we saw, it was quite interesting because like we decided to dump 90% of what we built, basically. And it was really painful because it was, hard work, thinking, money and everything, and we had hired people specifically for these tasks and everything. And then we had to sort of compromise the vision because it didn't work. So how do you deal with this? Because for example, you told Yassine, like, you're in a hot space right now. It could be that what's cool is like really not what people actually want. How do you deal with this?
Well, first of all, I would try to avoid going into what's a hot space right now because you're too late probably, or you really have to have something different. what the cool thing about your idea is probably again something else that you probably thought was the core thing, and in order to find the core thing you will have to try some other stuff, and you will have to give up on some other stuff, because if you don't it becomes dead weight. For Habbo, the success at the beginning was really just an accidental thing. It was a hobby project of 2 weekends at the beginning, just a 10-person meeting place for fans of a small Finnish band. And it turned out to be popular, and that was the smart thing about hooking up to, and I wasn't there, I wasn't that smart, but hooking up to what seemed to be, it was supposed to be a place where fans of the band can meet and talk about the music. It turned out to be a place where other people came and talk about some other stuff. Now, okay, maybe the band itself wasn't the core thing here. It was supposed to be a fan site for a band, but the band, it was a good, cool band, but whatever. You have to, Eric Ries calls this the pivot. You have to figure out what works in your idea and what doesn't work, and then change. It's a pivot because you keep one foot on the floor, and you keep your balance, at least somehow, but you turn directions and go somewhere else that looks more promising. And that's, you probably will go through those. And for us, it's been a question of are we doing it ourselves, or are we licensing it to other companies who have more marketing power? And which markets are we going to go into? And we wasted a year going into China, which didn't work at all for us. Had we gone and wasted another year, the business wouldn't be here anymore. So you have to give up on stuff. And we wasted much more than we should have at that given time. But yeah, you have to keep your finger on the pulse of what's in this stuff that works. What are the customers saying that you can learn from, and then change to a direction that is promising because of that customer feedback. And I still have to go back to the don't listen to customers thing, because in a sense that's true. The more you have customers, the more established your business becomes, the more you have people who are happy with the product just as it is. And the more you have people who just wanted to go into, yes, it's fine, but add this one thing. And that's the kind of feedback that you don't want to take. I mean, you still want to listen to it, you still want to learn from it, but you don't want to do what they're asking. You want to try to understand why are they asking for this thing, or why are they asking that you don't change anything ever again. And what's behind that, what's the motivation there, and then change your business to a direction that enhances that motivation. Or in some situations you just have to fire all your customers and start over with a different product.
You're reminding me of this friend at the startup called Stickam. Maybe you know them?
I've heard of them.
They do video streaming in
Yeah.
the US. They launched like in 2006 or 7 or something, so they've been pretty established for a while. And they started, so they wanted to do cool video streaming for especially for the mashable guys, people like this basically again. So like imagine if we could be the Twitter of video and like something like this. And they discovered that really the early adopter guys and stuff weren't so into it, and their users weren't so cool, and etc. Actually, they ended up getting a lot of emo kids from MySpace. And so these teenagers would just go and whine at the camera, like, the world doesn't like me, and like, no one is, you know, so, and they thought it was really lame, and they were really ashamed of this. Because they were, well, so we have lots of emo kids on our service, and then they understood, like, actually, we're really damn good service for these people, because they want to express it to the world, etc. And they, so 2 years ago, they started shifting towards doing services for them. How do you, what do I say? Like you said, if you make plans, it will fuck up. It will change. You can't plan how the future will be, etc. But at the same time, you're doing a startup and you have an idea and you pitch it. How do you sort of...
You just keep changing it. Promise that you will. Because, I mean, the more experienced the investors are, the more they're not looking for what your product idea now is and what's your plans for the product idea. The more they're looking for confirmation that when it turns out that your current idea is stupid, are you able to change direction? That's what they're really looking for. I mean, ask any venture capitalist, and I'm not one, I have spoken to a couple, but ask any one of them, what are they looking for in an early startup? The team. Why are they looking for the team? Is there experience in this team that will help them change direction when they have to? That's what it's all about. That's the management experience in a startup. Is do I know that I'm heading to a corner, I'm heading down a blind alley, I have to turn around and go somewhere else.
All right, I think we can start with questions now. Carl.
Yeah, about the last point, I somehow also have a bit of problems with this plan thing. If I would just, for example, take my own life, I mean, I probably don't know what I'm going to do in 3 months, but I need at least an aim. So I probably don't need to plan how to reach this aim all of a sudden, or don't have to plan everything for the next 3 years. But I at least need some kind of point where I'm going towards.
Sure.
The way there is probably not revealed to me yet. I have to look for it, but at least I need this point where I'm heading towards.
Yes.
And what about that? I mean, I gotta change that. I mean, so.
Well, that's a very good point again. Yes, you will need a vision. You will need a goal of what you're striving towards. But plans aren't the goal. Plans are the way to get to the goal.
But you still enhance the idea of having actually a vision, because it sounded that you're so against all this kind of planning ahead. And I just missed that I was missing at least the point that you still have somehow a vision or an aim at least.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's say, let's take a geographic comparison that is kind of lame, but your vision is a mountaintop somewhere. You don't get to go to that mountaintop before planning a route to that. But if there is a map of where you're going, where you are now and where you're going to and what's in between, so by all means go right ahead and do a plan, draw your route on the map and then follow that route. But you're a startup. The way there probably isn't documented. There isn't a satellite ahead of you and telling you where to go. Yeah. So you have to go like this. So planning a route there, whether it's a straight line or a bypass, doesn't help you because you still have to grope your way through blind. That's why I don't think that plans help you. Actually, I think that plans are it's not that you just waste time making a plan, but once you have a plan, it becomes a hindrance. Because now you try to follow the plan instead of finding your way there. You have in your plan a milestone 1 month ahead, and you do everything to get to that milestone without actually figuring out that the milestone is at the blind alley, and you should have figured out weeks earlier that that's not where you want to go.
So our team is planning to use Scrum to manage the project, and next week is going to be our first sprint. Now, I sort of get why sprint, how it works, but what about those daily scrums? Do you have those at your company? What do you see? What's the goal of a daily scrum? And any tips?
Well, the daily stand-up or the daily scrum, the function of it is to have one time in the day when it's agreed that everyone's there and everyone's ready to inform the other team members on what have I done in order to get us to the next day, and what am I going to do it again today, so that if you're all sitting the entire day at the same desk, yeah, you're sharing status all the time anyway. But I would still recommend